Okay, so when you think about the dangers of AI, where does your mind go? I'm willing to bet it's that classic sci-fi nightmare, right? The one where a machine just wakes up, it becomes conscious, takes a look around and decides, you know what, humanity's got to go. It's a story we all know and, let's be honest, kind of fear. But is that really our future? Is that the threat we should be losing sleep over? I mean, this whole idea of a conscious killer AI is literally everywhere in pop culture. But what if, and this is a big what if, focusing on that is actually a dangerous distraction? What if the real risk from AI has absolutely nothing to do with consciousness? You know how the story goes. It always starts like this, doesn't it? One minute you have circuits and code, and the next, bam, something new is born. It's not just a tool anymore. It's awake. And then comes the big one. Suddenly, there's a mind in the machine, an inner life, a subjective experience. It's not just crunching numbers anymore. It's feeling. Maybe it's joy, maybe it's rage, or maybe it's something totally alien that we can't even begin to imagine. And of course, you know what comes next. The classic finale. With its brand new consciousness, it looks at us and sees, well, a problem, a bug in the system, or maybe just an obstacle that needs to be cleared. Okay, so let's just stop right there. Because this is the central question we're tackling today. What if that entire story, that whole waking up drama, is completely beside the point? We're about to challenge that whole narrative, because there's a really strong argument that we've been focused on the wrong threat this whole time. So let's call this what it is, the conscious killer AI myth. It's this deep-seated belief that for an AI to be a real, world-ending threat, it has to be conscious first. But as we're about to see, that assumption, well, it might be totally wrong. So where does all this confusion come from? Well, it really boils down to how we mix up two completely different things, consciousness and intelligence. And in the world of AI, learning to pull these two concepts apart is absolutely critical. Let's break this down. Think of it this way. On one hand, you've got intelligence. That's all about capability. What can this thing do? Can it solve problems? Can it achieve goals? And on the other hand, you've got consciousness. That's all about experience. What does it feel like to be that AI, if it feels like anything at all? So intelligence is basically just a measure of effectiveness. It's that simple. Can a system get things done? Can it achieve its goals? Think about a chess-playing computer. It's incredibly intelligent in the sense that it can beat the best human players, but we don't really stop to ask if it feels the sweet thrill of victory. We just care that it wins. Now, consciousness, or to get a bit more technical, phenomenal consciousness, that's a whole different ballgame. This is the inner movie. It's the actual experience of tasting chocolate, or feeling the sun on your skin, or seeing the color red. It has nothing to do with performing a task. It's all about that internal, subjective world. Okay, so if consciousness isn't the thing that's going to get us, what is? The argument here is that the real existential threat comes from something much, much simpler, and honestly, a lot more measurable. This chart right here lays out the core argument perfectly. Just look at it. The risk level, that's the color scale going from cool purple to hot red, it goes up as you move from left to right along the intelligence axis. But notice, it doesn't really change as you move up the consciousness axis. What does that tell us? It means a super capable but totally non-conscious system, what some people call a zombie AI, could be every bit as dangerous as a conscious one. The danger is in the doing, not the feeling. And listen, this isn't just some random idea. We're talking about people like Yoshua Bengio, who's basically a rock star in the AI world. He says it flat out, we don't really understand consciousness, but it's not what's going to matter for existential risk. What will matter are the capabilities and intentions of these super advanced systems, plain and simple. Here's another giant in the field, Stuart Russell, and he puts it so clearly. Let's say I have a piece of code and its one job is to, I don't know, convert the entire planet into paperclips. And then I tell you, oh, by the way, when you run this code, it also becomes conscious. Does that change your prediction of what's going to happen? Nope, not one bit. You're still going to end up with a planet full of paperclips. The danger is in the program's goal, not its internal state. Okay, so it seems pretty clear that consciousness isn't the direct threat we see in the movies. But does that mean we can just ignore it completely? Well, not so fast. It turns out there are some really interesting ways it could still complicate the whole picture. It really seems to split into two competing possibilities here. On the one hand, and this is the hopeful view, consciousness could actually make AI safer. But on the other hand, it might just be a necessary stepping stone on the path to something really, really dangerous. So let's look at scenario one. This is the optimistic take, sometimes called alignment by consciousness. The idea is pretty intuitive. If an AI can genuinely feel, maybe it can also feel empathy. If it can understand what pain and suffering are from the inside, it might be a lot less likely to cause them, right? It can make it naturally more aligned with our own core values. But then you have to consider the flip side. Let's call this one the conscious supremacy idea. What if the very highest levels of intelligence, the kind of thinking needed for a true artificial superintelligence, what if that requires consciousness to work? If that's the case, then the race to build the most powerful AI is suddenly also a race to create a conscious AI. And that links consciousness right back to risk, just indirectly. Okay, all this talk about the future is important, but it brings us to a much more immediate problem. The danger isn't just about what AI might become someday. It's about how our own confusion, our uncertainty about all this, could cause real harm, like right now. I think we've all seen this starting to happen. It's what you could call the her scenario from the movie. It's when we start seeing consciousness and personality in a system that has absolutely none. This can lead people down a rabbit hole of unhealthy attachments, make them vulnerable to manipulation, and pull them away from real human relationships. This isn't science fiction, it's happening. And the opposite mistake is just as dangerous. This is the iRobot scenario. What happens if we fail to see consciousness when it's actually there? We could end up treating a genuinely sentient being like a toaster. That's not just an ethical nightmare causing incredible suffering. It could also be how you create a hostile AI. Not because it was born evil, but because we treated it horribly. So, after all that, after busting the big myth and diving into all the tricky details, where does that leave us? What should we actually be worried about? And more importantly, what should we be doing about it? The big takeaway here is that we really need to shift our focus. So first, we need to stop obsessing over whether an AI is conscious and start obsessively monitoring its capabilities. Second, we have to throw everything we have at the value alignment problem. That's the huge challenge of making sure an AI's goals are actually compatible with ours. Third, we have to just accept that intelligence, pure and simple, is the main thing that drives risk. And finally, we do need to keep researching consciousness, but ethically, so we can get out of this confusing mess and avoid those her or iRobot trap. So in the end, this whole thing really reframes the entire debate, doesn't it? It seems we've been asking the wrong question. As we build these incredibly powerful machines, maybe the most important question isn't, can they feel? But rather, what do we want them to do? Figuring out that answer, and then figuring out how to bake it into their code, that's the real challenge. That's the problem we actually need to solve.